The text came in at 6:12 a.m. while the house was still dark and the neighborhood was quiet. Jason: Mom, transfer the house into my name this week. Don't make this messy. Martha Caldwell stared at the screen until the letters stopped looking like letters and started feeling like a threat. The blue glow lit up the lines on her face and the silver in her hair. 72 years old, widowed, and known in her corner of Nashville as the steady woman who never raised her voice, she did not type a paragraph back. She did not call him. She did not beg. She wrote 2 words: okay. It sounded like surrender. It looked like surrender. It was not. Within 10 minutes, Martha had the message printed out on plain white paper, the way her late husband used to print directions before road trips. She placed it inside a manila folder and wrote 1 word in thick black marker: documentation. Under that, she added the date. Then she opened a drawer in the kitchen where she kept coupons, a spare set of keys, and the little emergency cash she never told anyone about. She pulled out her checkbook and the small envelope from Regions Bank that held her most recent statement. She slid that in too, at 7:05 a.m., and she was dressed for a weekday: simple sweater, neat slacks, shoes that were practical, not stylish. She looked like someone heading to choir rehearsal or the grocery store. She looked like a woman trying to keep the peace, but the peace had already been stolen. For months, people at church had been saying Jason and Kelsey were so attentive. They brought Martha coffee after service. They sat close to her in the pew. They talked about her loneliness like it was an illness everyone could see. And Martha, who sang alto in the choir and tended roses behind her porch, kept smiling because she did not want a scene. She did not want public conflict. She did not want to be the widow people pitied, or worse, the widow people gossiped about. The text proved something else was happening. By 8:30 a.m., Martha sat in a quiet waiting room at an estate planning office off a busy Nashville road, listening to the hum of the air conditioner and the distant ringing of a phone. Her folder was on her lap like a shield. The receptionist asked for her name. Martha gave it. The receptionist asked if she was here to update a will, create a trust, or review an existing plan. Martha looked down at the printed message again, felt her stomach tighten, and answered softly like she was stating the weather. All of it, because she had a feeling that by Sunday this would no longer be just a family argument. By Sunday, there would be a pastor involved. There would be prayer requests. There would be concerned looks and murmured advice. There would be pressure dressed up as love. And Martha was about to meet the part of the plan they thought she would never question, the friend of the family, who was going to make it sound like God wanted her to sign her life away. If the story shocks you, stay to the end. You'll see how 1 notarized letter, 1 bank envelope, and 1 quiet decision turned the tables on a scheme that had been forming for years. Before it begins, hit like, subscribe, and tell the city you're watching from in the comments. It helps this story travel farther than the people who tried to bury it. Martha Caldwell's life ran on quiet routines that did not need anyone's permission. On weekday mornings, she watered the hydrangeas along the fence, checked the mail, and made a cup of coffee strong enough to taste like it meant something. She paid bills at the same corner of her kitchen table, with a pen that always ran out of ink at the worst time. She drove herself to Kroger, picked produce by feel, and made small talk with cashiers who remembered her name. On Sundays, she parked her older sedan in the same spot at church, nodded at the same ushers, and found her place in the choir loft. She sang because it kept her breathing steady and made the grief feel organized for a few minutes. Harold had been the careful one. A retired maintenance supervisor with calloused hands and a soft voice, he believed in paying bills on time and not owing anyone more than a polite thank you. They bought their small brick house in Nashville decades ago, raised Jason in it, replaced the roof once, fixed the plumbing twice, and never missed a mortgage payment. By the time Harold passed, the house was paid off. It was the kind of security people did not notice until someone tried to take it. Martha did not talk about money at church. She did not brag. She did not complain. She brought casseroles to new widows and folded programs with the ladies' group. She tried to be the kind of person others could count on without learning her weaknesses. The first sign that something had shifted came disguised as kindness. One Sunday after service, Jason and Kelsey appeared at the edge of the fellowship hall with 2 paper cups from the cafe across the street. It was a local place. Warm lighting, chalkboard menu, baristas who knew the regulars. They handed her the cup like it was a gift. "Mom, we just want you to have something nice," Jason said, leaning in with a grin that looked rehearsed. Kelsey smiled a half-second later. Her smile was bright in public, the kind that pulled people in, the kind that made others think she must be sweet. "We've been worried about your loneliness," she said, loud enough for 2 women nearby to hear. "We just want you surrounded." Martha felt the words land like a label on her forehead. Lonely, needy, vulnerable. She took the coffee anyway. She said thank you. She did not correct them in front of the church group. She told herself it was not worth the awkwardness. She told herself she could not afford public conflict. That decision, to keep things smooth, would become the door they walked through. Over the next few weeks, their concern showed up everywhere. Jason offered to mow the lawn, even though Martha already paid a neighbor's teenage son a fair price. Kelsey dropped off a store-bought pie and made sure to mention, again, how alone Martha must feel at night. In the pew, Jason started sitting closer than usual, like he needed witnesses to his devotion. During choir practice, Martha overheard a conversation before she realized it was about her. "She's at that age," Kelsey said to another woman, voice soft but not private. "Sometimes older people don't realize what they need." Martha's hands froze on the edge of her music folder. She wanted to turn around and say, "She knows what she needs. She needs respect." But she kept her mouth closed. She kept singing. She kept the peace. Then came the paperwork talk. It started casually, at the cafe after service, when Jason suggested they get organized. "Dad would have wanted it," he said, stirring his drink like it was a serious duty. "Just making sure things are set up right. Power of attorney, medical directives, all that. It's normal." Martha knew it was normal. She also knew Harold had already set up a will years earlier. They had gone together, signed documents, and put the originals in a safe place. She had never felt fear about it until her son started asking. Kelsey slid in smoothly. "And if anything ever happened, we could help you with your accounts. Regions Bank has those options, you know. It's safer." Safer for whom? Martha wondered, but she did not say it out loud. She asked a simple question instead. "Why now?" Jason's smile tightened. "Because we love you." 2 days later, the mail brought a plain envelope from Regions Bank. Martha had been expecting it. Monthly statement, same as always. She opened it, checked the numbers, and placed it back in the envelope the way she always did. But that afternoon, Kelsey stopped by unannounced with a cheerful voice and a tote bag of groceries for you. Martha watched as Kelsey's eyes flicked to the counter. Right to the envelope. "Oh, Regions," Kelsey said lightly. "Do you want help setting up online access? It'd be so much easier. Jason can do it." Martha slid the envelope under a stack of coupons. "I'm fine." Kelsey laughed like Martha had told a joke. "You always say that." That evening, Jason texted and asked for the spare key. Just in case. Martha stared at that message too. She pictured Harold handing over a key without question, because it was his son. She pictured how easy it would be for someone to walk into her home when she was at choir, or at Kroger, or just out back gardening. Martha typed back slowly, "No." There was a pause. Then Jason replied with a single word that felt like a jab. "Why?" She did not answer. She did not want a fight. She also did not want to pretend the question was normal. On the drive home from Kroger the next day, Martha's phone rang. It was a number she recognized but did not expect. Pastor Reynolds. "Hi, Martha," the pastor said in his calm, familiar tone. "Jason mentioned he's been helping you lately. I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing." Martha's fingers tightened on the steering wheel. Jason had mentioned it. Jason had brought the pastor into it. "I'm fine," she said. "Good," Pastor Reynolds replied. "And listen, sometimes when families step up to support, It can be a blessing. Don't be too proud to accept help. Proud. That word carried a warning. It suggested that refusing would be a sin. After the call, Martha sat in her driveway for a moment, staring at the front door. The house looked the same. The porch light, the wind chime Harold hung, the rose bush by the steps, the place that held their whole adult life. But the pressure had moved from the kitchen table into the church pew. And on Sunday, when Martha opened the bulletin during announcements, a line near the bottom caught her eye. Prayer request. Please pray for Sister Martha, that she will accept support and make wise decisions for her family. Martha's face went hot. She looked around the sanctuary, suddenly unsure who was watching her. Someone had turned her private life into a public lesson, and Martha could feel, even then, that the next check-in would not be about her health at all. It would be about her house. At first, Martha told herself the prayer request was a misunderstanding. Maybe someone had taken something Kelsey said out of context. Maybe Pastor Reynolds thought he was helping. In a church where people shared everything from illnesses to job losses, a prayer request could feel normal, but Martha could not shake the way the words were framed. Accept support, make wise decisions for her family, like she was stubborn, confused, and in need of guidance. The next week, the concern grew louder. It started in small moments that were easy to dismiss. A woman from the church group asked, "How are you holding up at night?" as if Martha had been crying in the dark for months. Another person mentioned, with sympathy, "I heard you've been struggling with the bills." Martha's smile stayed polite, but her stomach tightened. She was not struggling with bills. She had never missed a payment in her life. After service, Jason and Kelsey walked her to the cafe again, steering her like she might get lost. "Mom, Pastor Reynolds really cares," Jason said, as if Martha should be grateful for the attention. Kelsey squeezed Martha's arm. "Everyone just wants peace for you," she said. "No stress." Martha stared at the foam in her coffee. Peace, stress, loneliness. They were using soft words to disguise hard control. Then Kelsey said it. "We talked to Pastor Reynolds about your home," she said casually, like she was talking about the weather. Martha looked up. "You talked about my home?" Kelsey's expression never broke. "Only because we want to make sure you're protected. You know, if anything happened, Jason would need to be able to handle things. You'd want it to be easy for him." Martha heard the sentence the way it really was. "You'd want to make it easy for us." Jason leaned forward. "Mom, it's just paperwork. It doesn't mean you lose anything. It's just transferring the house to my name now, so later there's no hassle. You can still live there. It's basically the same. Basically." That word hung in the air, trying to shrink a life's work into a technicality. Martha did not argue. She did not raise her voice. She did not create a scene in the cafe with people from church nearby. She asked one question. Why would a deed change be basically the same? Jason's jaw tightened. "Because we're family." Kelsey added quickly, "And because, Mom, we're worried about your loneliness." There it was again. Loneliness, used like leverage. Martha went home and tried to settle herself by working in her garden. She clipped dead leaves. She pulled weeds with steady hands. She told herself that if she stayed calm, the situation would calm down too. But then her phone rang. A man from Regions Bank introduced himself and asked if she had a moment to confirm some information. "We received an inquiry about adding another authorized user and setting up account access," he said carefully. "We just want to make sure it was you." "Hots." Martha's hands went still. "No." There was a short pause on the line. "Okay. Thank you for confirming. We'll note that." Martha swallowed. "Who made the inquiry?" "I'm not able to share details," the banker said in a trained, neutral voice. "But if you'd like, you can come in and review account security options." After the call, Martha stood in the quiet kitchen and stared at the Regions envelope she kept tucked away. Someone had tried to get into her accounts. Someone close enough to know which bank she used. She did not need proof of who it was. She already felt it in her bones. That evening, she opened her folder labeled Documentation and added a new page. The date of the bank call, the name of the representative, and the short summary. She wrote it neatly, like minutes from a meeting. 2 days later, Kelsey arrived with a plastic container of cookies and the bright smile again. She placed the container on the counter and looked around Martha's kitchen, eyes flicking to drawers, to shelves, to the small lockbox Martha kept out of sight. "Where do you keep your important papers?" Kelsey asked, too casual to be innocent. Martha wiped her hands on a dish towel. "Why?" Kelsey's laugh came quickly. "Oh, no reason. Just thinking about emergencies. You know, if you fell, if you got sick, we'd need access." Martha held her gaze. "If I fell, I would call 911. Kelsey's smile thinned. For a second, something cold showed underneath. "Of course," she said, "but families should help too." As Kelsey reached for her purse, something slipped out and landed on the floor. An envelope with the church logo on it, the kind Pastor Reynolds used for letters to members. Kelsey snatched it up quickly, but not before Martha saw her own name printed on the front. Martha's voice stayed steady. "Is that for me?" Kelsey hesitated just long enough to answer without sounding guilty. "Oh, yes. Pastor Reynolds asked me to drop it off. He thought it would be easier than mailing." Martha took the envelope and felt its weight. It was thicker than a bulletin. Something official. She waited until Kelsey left, then opened it at the kitchen table. Inside was a letter on church letterhead. Pastor Reynolds wrote about stewardship, about family unity, about reducing stress in later years. He suggested Martha meet with him and Jason to discuss a plan for her home and finances in a spirit of prayer. At the bottom there was a date and time already set, Sunday afternoon. Martha read it twice, feeling her pulse rise. It was not a request. It was an appointment, a meeting, a planned pressure point, a stage. She added the letter to her folder and sat very still, because now she understood the lie at the center of it all. They were not worried about her loneliness. They were worried about what she still owned. On Friday, Martha met her friend Deirdre at a small diner not far from the church. The place smelled like bacon grease and coffee refills. Deirdre was another choir member, the kind of woman who noticed details and never pretended not to. Deirdre slid into the booth, lowered her voice, and said, "People are talking." Martha's hands tightened around her mug. "About what?" "They say Jason's been under pressure," Deirdre replied. "Someone said his business is struggling. Something about loans. And Kelsey, she's been telling folks you're overwhelmed, that you need help making decisions." Martha stared at the tabletop, looking at the scratches in the laminate. She pictured Jason as a boy, holding a baseball glove too big for his hand. She pictured Harold teaching him how to change a tire. She pictured the way she used to defend him when other people said he was careless. "What kind of son lets the whole church think his mother can't handle her own life?" Martha asked quietly. Deirdre's eyes softened. "The kind who needs something." That night Jason sent another text. It looked friendly on the surface, but the message underneath was sharp. "Jason, Pastor Reynolds is setting aside time for us Sunday. Don't worry, it'll be peaceful. People just want to know you're okay." Martha read it once, then again. People. That was the weapon now. Not a demand in private, but a story told in public until she felt trapped by it. She placed the phone face down on the table. She went to her drawer, took out the folder, and opened it like a book. The letter, the bank call notes, the printed message. 3 pieces already, 3 steps of a plan, and Sunday was coming. The estate planning office smelled faintly of paper and hand sanitizer, and that was exactly what Martha needed. A place where emotion did not decide the outcome. The attorney, a woman named Gloria Hensley, greeted Martha with a calm, professional smile. She did not call Martha "sweetie." She did not speak slowly. She treated her like an adult who owned her own life. Martha sat across from Gloria's desk and placed the documentation folder down carefully, like evidence. "I'm not here for drama," Martha said. "I'm here because I want peace. And my family keeps using that word like it means I should give them my house." Gloria opened the folder and read the printed text message first. She did not react theatrically. Her eyebrows lifted slightly and her voice stayed even. "This is direct," she said, "and it's helpful. Clear statements are rare. Martha nodded. I replied, "Okay." Gloria looked up. "Why?" "Because arguing gives them what they want," Martha said. "I want to understand the plan." Gloria placed the paper flat and asked for the basics. Martha's age, marital status, assets, the status of the home. Martha answered without exaggeration. The house was paid off. There was a modest retirement account, a checking account at Regions Bank. No secret fortune, just stability. "And they're bringing your pastor into it?" Gloria asked, glancing at the church letter. "Yes," Martha said. "He's a friend of the family. They're making it sound like God wants me to sign something." Gloria's expression tightened for the first time. "Faith does not override consent," she said. "No one, family, clergy, anyone, gets to pressure you into transferring property you do not want to transfer." Martha's shoulders lowered slightly, like someone had removed a weight. Gloria slid a yellow legal pad closer and wrote a short list. "Step 1, she said, "we review your current will and documents. Step 2, we make sure your wishes are current and protected. Step 3, we protect access, bank, accounts, anything with a login. Step 4, we document all contact. Written is best. If you have any recordings, they must be made in ways that are lawful, but you can always keep notes, save texts, keep letters." Martha nodded. "That's what I've been doing." "Good," Gloria said. "Now step 5 is understanding motive. Pressure usually follows need." Martha swallowed. "Jason never used to be like this." Gloria did not argue with grief. She simply asked, "What does he do for work?" "Construction. Small business," Martha replied. "He started it with a friend." Jason said, "Business has been slow." Gloria leaned back slightly. "Slow can mean a lot of things. Debt, lawsuits, missed payments. People don't usually target an older parent's home unless they're desperate or they think they can get away with it." Martha's mind flashed to the word in the bulletin. Wise decisions. A public judgment already written. Gloria suggested Martha take a few small legal steps to learn more about what was happening. No confrontation yet, just facts. That afternoon, Martha drove to the Regions Bank branch she had used for years. The lobby was bright with polite tellers behind glass. She asked for an appointment with a banker and explained calmly that she wanted to review access and security on her accounts. The banker pulled up her information and asked the required questions. Martha answered. She requested that account changes require extra verification and that no one be added without her presence. She asked for copies of recent statements and any notes regarding inquiries. The banker printed what he could, placed it in an envelope, and slid it across the desk. Martha held the envelope and felt something she had not expected. Relief. Paper did not lie. Numbers did not gossip. In the parking lot, she opened the envelope and looked at the notes. There it was in small typed lines, an inquiry about access, a request for information, and the name of the person who made it. Kelsey Morgan Caldwell. Martha's stomach turned cold. So it was not just Jason. It was Kelsey driving the paperwork. On the drive home, Martha stopped by the public library. She did not tell herself she was being dramatic. She told herself she was being careful. She asked the librarian for help accessing public records and basic business information. Within an hour, Martha had learned what Jason had not said out loud. His business had multiple late payments. There was a lien filed, a lawsuit threatened by a vendor, a stack of problems that could not be prayed away. It explained the urgency. It also explained why they were trying to move quickly, before anyone could ask too many questions. That night, Martha sat at her kitchen table with her folder open and a fresh page of notes. She added the bank envelope to the stack. She wrote the banker's name, the branch location, and the confirmation of who made the inquiry. She wrote it neatly, like she was building a timeline. Then she opened the church letter again and stared at the scheduled meeting time. Sunday afternoon, a staged conversation, with a pastor as the authority. She could avoid it. She could refuse and stay home. But Martha knew what that would look like in the story they were telling. The stubborn widow refused counsel. The lonely older woman pushed away help. the mother who wouldn't cooperate. Avoiding conflict would not stop it now. It would only give them more room to write her role without her in the room. So Martha made a decision that surprised even her. She would go, but she would go prepared. On Saturday, she visited Gloria again and reviewed updated documents. They discussed options that kept Martha in control: clear beneficiaries, specific instructions, and boundaries that could not be interpreted by someone else later. Gloria also drafted a formal letter stating Martha's intent regarding the home and finances, a letter that could be notarized and used if anyone tried to claim confusion. Martha left the office with copies in a new folder and a strange sense of steadiness. At home, she placed her documentation folder on the counter and looked around the kitchen. She noticed something she had ignored before: a stack of papers near the mail, slightly shifted, as if someone had touched them and put them back. Martha's eyes narrowed. She went to her desk drawer where she kept old tax records and pulled out a blank page. She wrote down the exact position of the papers, then gently moved them into a different order. It was a small test, nothing illegal or dramatic, just a way to confirm a suspicion. If someone came into her home when she was away, the papers would not be in the same place. She went to bed that night with her phone beside her and her folder within reach. Because if Kelsey had already tried to access her bank account, how long before someone tried to access her house itself? Sunday afternoon arrived with a gray sky and the kind of cold wind that made Nashville feel older than it was. Martha dressed simply and pinned her hair back the way she did for choir. She brought her documentation folder, the new paperwork from Gloria Hensley, and a small notepad. She did not bring anger. She brought clarity. Pastor Reynolds met them in a church office that smelled like coffee and old books. A framed Bible verse hung on the wall. A box of tissues sat on a side table like a prop. Jason and Kelsey were already seated, shoulders squared, expressions arranged for concern. Kelsey held a printed sheet in her hand, as if she had notes for a performance. Pastor Reynolds smiled warmly. "Martha, thank you for coming. We're here because your family loves you." Martha sat down. She placed her folder on her lap and folded her hands on top of it. Pastor Reynolds began with prayer. His words were gentle, but Martha heard what he was doing, setting the tone, placing authority over the room. When he finished, he looked at Martha with a fatherly expression. "Your family has shared concerns," he said. "They worry you're isolated. They worry you're carrying burdens alone. And sometimes the Lord calls us to trust our family and let them help." Martha kept her voice steady. "What burdens, specifically?" Jason cleared his throat. "Mom, it's not about details. It's about your future. We just want to simplify. Kelsey and I can handle the paperwork." Kelsey leaned forward. "We want you protected," she said, and her eyes flicked to the folder on Martha's lap. "If something happened, we don't want the house tied up. It would be stressful." Pastor Reynolds nodded. "A home can become an idol," he said softly, as if he was offering wisdom. "Sometimes letting go is an act of faith." Martha looked at him. She did not challenge his religion. She challenged his assumption. "Pastor," she said, "are you advising I sign my deed over to my son?" Pastor Reynolds hesitated. The question was too direct for the room he had prepared. "I'm advising unity," he said carefully, "and stewardship." Martha nodded. "Then let's be clear. Unity does not require surrender." Jason's face tightened. "Mom, why are you being like this?" "Like what?" Martha asked. "Suspicious," Kelsey said quickly, smile still in place. "It's hurtful, after everything we've done." Martha's eyes stayed on Kelsey. "You called Regions Bank about my accounts." Kelsey blinked. "What?" Martha did not raise her voice. She simply stated a fact. "You made an inquiry about access." Jason turned toward Kelsey, surprised. Kelsey's smile froze. Pastor Reynolds shifted in his chair. "Martha, sometimes older adults misunderstand administrative things," he said, sliding into the same language the bulletin used. Perhaps Kelsey was just trying to help. Martha reached into her folder and pulled out the bank envelope. She did not wave it around. She placed it on the desk, calm and precise. "This is the note from the bank," she said. It's not a misunderstanding." The room went quiet for a beat. Jason's voice came out sharper than before. "Mom, why are you going to the bank behind our backs?" Martha met his eyes. "Because I'm not a child." Kelsey's tone changed. The sweetness dropped a notch. "You're making this public," she said. "You're embarrassing us." Martha heard the weapon. Shame. "What will people think?" Pastor Reynolds tried again, softer now. "Martha, no one wants conflict. Your son is trying to do the right thing." Martha looked at Pastor Reynolds and finally said what she had been holding back since the prayer request. "Pastor, you have known this family for years," she said. "You married Jason and Kelsey. You stood at Harold's funeral, and now you're helping them pressure me to sign away my home. That is not care. That is manipulation." Pastor Reynolds's cheeks reddened. "That's not fair," he said, voice tightening. Martha nodded once. "Then stop." Jason pushed his chair back slightly. "Mom, you're being stubborn." Martha took out another paper. Gloria's formal letter, already signed, prepared for notarization. She did not hand over the original. She showed a copy. "I met with an attorney," she said. "My estate plan is being updated. My wishes are clear. I am not transferring my house to anyone. Not now. Not later. If you want unity, respect that." Kelsey's eyes widened. Jason stared at the paper like it was a betrayal. "You got a lawyer?" he said. "Against your own son?" Martha's voice stayed even. "I got clarity for my own life." Pastor Reynolds exhaled, as if he had lost control of the script. "Martha, legal action can divide families," he warned. Martha looked at him. "So can greed." The meeting ended without the blessing they had planned. Martha stood, gathered her folder, and walked out with her head up. She did not slam doors. She did not cry. She simply left. In the parking lot, Jason caught up to her, his face no longer arranged for church. "You think you can just do this to us?" he hissed. "You're going to regret making us look bad." Martha opened her car door. "You made yourselves look bad when you demanded my house." Jason's hand clenched into a fist at his side. He leaned in, voice low. "You don't understand what's at stake." Martha paused. "Then explain it." Jason's eyes darted around the parking lot, checking for witnesses. He lowered his voice further. "We're drowning, Mom. The business is failing. We have debt. If we lose the house, we lose everything." Martha felt a flash of pity, and then the cold realization. They were not asking for help. They were demanding rescue. She closed her car door gently. "I'm sorry you're struggling," she said, "but the answer is still no." She drove home and noticed something that made her stomach drop. The papers on her desk were no longer in the order she had left them. Someone had been inside while she was at church, and when Martha checked the back door, the deadbolt was locked. But the knob showed a faint scratch, like someone had tried a key that almost fit. Martha stood in the hallway, listening to the quiet of her own home, and realized the plan had moved from pressure to intrusion. If they could not convince her, they might try to take the decision away from her. And somewhere in Nashville, Jason and Kelsey were no longer just talking about peace. They were looking for a shortcut. On Monday, Martha did not go to choir practice. She stayed home and listened to the house. That sounded strange even to her. It was her own home, the place she had lived in for decades, but now every small noise felt like a question. The creak of a floorboard, the click of the HVAC turning on, the faint rattle of the wind chime outside. She checked the doors twice. She checked the windows. She checked the drawer where she kept the spare key. It was still there, but the scratch on the back doorknob told her someone had tried. Martha did not panic. She did not call Jason and accuse him without proof. She did what Gloria Hensley had advised. Facts first, then boundaries. She bought a simple camera system from a local store and had a technician install it. Nothing dramatic, just enough to record who came to the door. She changed the locks. She did not announce it to anyone. By Tuesday afternoon, the first test came. Martha was in the kitchen cutting vegetables when a hard knock hit the front door. 3 sharp strikes, not the polite tap of a neighbor. She looked through the peephole. Jason, Kelsey, and behind them, Pastor Reynolds. Martha's pulse rose, but her face stayed calm. She opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. "Mom," Jason said quickly, voice bright like he was still in the church parking lot. "We need to talk." "Not like this," Martha replied. Kelsey leaned forward, squeezing her face into concern. "Martha, please. Pastor Reynolds is here because we love you. We're worried." Pastor Reynolds offered a gentle smile. "Martha, I know Sunday was tense," he said, "but families heal when they come together." Martha kept her hand on the door. "Why are you here?" Jason lifted a folder. "We brought papers. It's simple, just temporary. It protects you." Martha's eyes moved to the folder. The way Jason held it, tight, urgent, made it look less like protection and more like a weapon. "No," Martha said. Jason's expression flickered. "Mom, don't do this again." Martha's voice stayed low. "I said no." Kelsey's smile disappeared. "So you're really going to tear the family apart over a house?" Martha let that sit. "You're the one tearing it apart," she said. "You're using church like a hammer." Pastor Reynolds's tone shifted slightly, a hint of frustration underneath the calm. "Martha, no one is hammering you. We're offering counsel." "I didn't ask for counsel," Martha replied. Jason's eyes narrowed. "Open the door, let us in. We can talk like adults." Martha's fingers tightened. "This is my house. I decide who comes in." Kelsey's voice rose. "See? This is what we mean. You're not thinking clearly. You're paranoid." Paranoid. Another label. Another attempt to rewrite reality. Martha inhaled slowly. "Leave." Jason stepped closer, and for a second it looked like he might push. Instead, he forced a smile and shifted tactics. "Mom," he said, lowering his voice, "listen, this isn't about you. If we lose everything, it affects you too. You'll be alone. People will wonder why you let your son drown." Martha felt the old reflex in her chest, the urge to fix, to rescue, to be the mother who made things okay. It was the vulnerability they counted on, the desire for peace. She kept her voice simple. "I will not sign anything at my front door." Kelsey's eyes flashed. "Then let us sit inside." "No." Pastor Reynolds cleared his throat. Martha, refusing to even talk. "I talked," Martha said. "I met with you. I said no." Jason's voice hardened. "Then we'll do it another way." Martha did not flinch. "What does that mean, Jason?" Jason held her gaze for a beat, then looked away like a man deciding to step over a line. "It means we'll have to protect you from yourself," he said. Martha felt her blood go cold. "Are you threatening me?" Kelsey leaned in, almost whispering, but loud enough for the microphone on the camera to catch. "We can get a doctor to say you're not competent," she said. "It happens. And then this will be handled without all this stubbornness." Martha's heart hammered. She did not respond with fear. She responded with precision. "I want you to hear me," she said, voice steady. "You are not coming in. You are not taking control of my life. And if you do not leave my property, I will call for help." Jason scoffed. "You'd call the police on your son?" Martha's eyes did not move. "I will call for help if someone tries to force their way into my home." For a moment, the front steps went quiet. Pastor Reynolds shifted uncomfortably, like he had not expected the situation to look this ugly outside church walls. Jason's face twisted in anger. He pointed at Martha through the crack in the door. "This is on you," he said. "When people ask why our family broke, remember that." Martha watched them walk away, Kelsey's shoulders stiff, Pastor Reynolds's head down. She closed the door, slid the deadbolt, and stood in the hallway with her hand against the wood. Her legs felt weak, but her mind felt clear. That evening Martha called Gloria Hensley and described what happened. Gloria listened without interrupting. "Do you have it documented?" Gloria asked. Martha looked at the small camera indicator light by the front door. "Yes." "Good," Gloria said. "Save it. Make notes." And Martha, if they're talking about competency, they may already be preparing something. After the call, Martha opened her folder and added another page, date, time, names present, Exact words said. She wrote Kelsey's sentence carefully. Get a doctor to say you're not competent. Then Martha's phone buzzed again. Jason, last chance. Sign the papers this week or we'll handle it ourselves. Martha stared at the message, the same feeling returning. Threat dressed as family. She typed 2 words again, the same minimal power she used before. Understood. And she began to plan for what handle it ourselves could really mean. The next morning, Martha walked next door to speak with her neighbor, a retired firefighter named Len who had lived on the street almost as long as she had. She did not ask him to take sides. She asked him to remember what he saw. Len listened, eyes narrowing. They showed up with the pastor, he said. At your door? Yes, Martha replied. And they wouldn't leave at first. Len glanced toward the street. If they come again, call me. I'll be your witness. Witness. That word mattered now. Not because Martha needed drama, but because she could feel the story being shaped around her without her consent. By lunchtime, another detail surfaced that made the threat feel more real. A woman from the church group called and said, Martha, Pastor Reynolds mentioned you've been confused lately. He asked us to pray for clarity for you. Martha closed her eyes. Confused. That word again. She thanked the woman for the call, ended it politely, and sat at the table with her hands flat on the wood. They were preparing the ground. They were planting doubt in public soil so they could harvest control later. So Martha took another quiet step. She scheduled a routine appointment with her primary care doctor, an ordinary wellness visit, documented, dated, normal. She answered every question clearly. She asked for a copy of the visit summary for her personal records, not because she was afraid of aging, but because she was not going to let someone weaponize it. When she left the clinic, her phone buzzed with a notification from the camera app. Motion detected at the front door. Martha's stomach clenched as she opened the clip. Someone had been on her porch while she was gone, and they were holding a key. The footage from the porch camera was short but sharp. A hand. A key. The key did not turn. The new lock held. The person looked up toward the camera for half a second, then stepped back out of frame. Martha replayed it twice and felt the same cold realization settle in. Someone had tried to enter her home while she was away. She saved the clip, backed it up, and wrote the timestamp in her notes. Then she did something that would have felt impossible months earlier. She stopped protecting their image. That evening, Martha called Gloria Hensley again. They tried a key, Martha said. I have it on video. Gloria's voice went tight. Keep everything, she said, and be ready for a shift in tactics. When people can't get control quietly, they try to get it emotionally. Gloria was right. 2 days later, Martha opened her front door and found a large bouquet on the porch, roses and lilies in a clear vase. A card was tucked inside, the handwriting neat and feminine. Martha, we love you. Let's move forward in peace. Kelsey. Peace again. Always peace. Martha carried the flowers inside and placed them on the counter without smelling them. She noticed the card was not just a note. It was a message designed to be shown, something that looked good if anyone asked. An hour later, the doorbell rang. Jason stood there with 2 children beside him, Noah, 6, with a hoodie too big for his shoulders, and Ava, 9, clutching a small stuffed animal. Martha's heart pulled hard in her chest. She loved those kids. She always had. She had been the grandmother who showed up to school plays and bought extra snacks, just in case. Jason's face softened, or at least tried to. Mom, he said quietly, can we talk? Ava looked up at Martha with wide eyes. Grandma, she whispered. Martha's throat tightened. This was the new weapon. Not the pastor, not the paperwork. The children, used like a bridge she could not cross without guilt. Martha opened the door wider. She did not invite Jason in. She knelt on the porch and hugged the kids first. Hi, sweetheart, she said to Ava. Hi, buddy, she said to Noah. How's school? Noah shrugged. Ava nodded toward Martha's house like she was afraid to step inside. Jason cleared his throat. Mom, the kids miss you, he said. They've been asking why you're upset. Martha stood slowly. I'm not upset with them. Jason's eyes flicked toward the street, as if he wanted the moment to look soft for anyone watching. We just want the family back, he said. No lawyers, no cameras, no all this. Martha held his gaze. Then stop trying to take my house. Jason's jaw clenched. We're not trying to take it. We're trying to keep it in the family. It is in the family, Martha replied. It's mine. Ava tugged on Jason's sleeve. Daddy, can we go inside? She asked. Jason hesitated. Martha saw him calculating. If she said no with the kids present, he could make her look cold. Martha stepped aside and opened the door for the children only. The kids can come in, she said. You can talk at the doorway. Jason's eyes narrowed, but he forced a smile. Mom, you're making it weird. Martha's voice stayed calm. I'm making it safe. But inside, Martha offered the children snacks and turned on a cartoon in the living room. Their laughter softened the air, but it did not erase the tension in the doorway. Jason lowered his voice. Kelsey didn't mean what she said, he began. About competency. Martha looked at him. She said it because she's thinking it. Jason exhaled hard. We're under pressure, he said. We made mistakes, but you could help us and still keep your dignity. There's a way to do this so it looks good. Looks good. There it was. Martha asked, How? Jason pulled out a folded paper from his pocket. A trust document, he said. Kelsey found a template online. It's simple. You name me as trustee. You keep living there. It's just easier. Martha did not take the paper. I have an attorney, she said. I will not sign anything you bring. Jason's face hardened. You don't trust your own son. Martha held her ground. Trust is earned. A small voice floated from the living room. Ava called, Grandma. Martha's heart squeezed again. Jason heard it too and used it. Mom, he said softly, do you really want the kids growing up thinking their grandma doesn't care about their family? Martha stared at him, shocked by how smoothly he could turn love into a threat. What kind of son does that? She asked, more to herself than to him. Jason's eyes flashed. A son who's tired of being judged, he snapped. You always acted like you and Dad were better than everyone. Martha blinked. That's not true. Jason leaned in. Then prove it, he said. Sign the trust. Transfer the house. Help us breathe. Martha's voice stayed low. No. Jason's face twisted with anger. Fine, he said. Then you'll see what no costs. He turned toward the living room and raised his voice, forcing cheer. Kids, time to go. Ava's eyes filled with tears. Noah looked confused. Martha walked them to the door, hugged them again, and watched them climb into the car. Ava looked back through the window with a sad face that cut Martha deeper than any threat. When the car pulled away, Martha stood on the porch, staring at the empty street. She could feel the guilt they wanted her to carry. Then her phone rang. Pastor Reynolds. Martha let it go to voicemail. A second later, a text arrived from Kelsey. Kelsey, if you keep doing this, people will know you're not well. We'll make sure you get the help you need. Martha's hands went cold. It was not a plea anymore. It was a promise. She opened her folder and slid the text message printout behind Jason's earlier demand. She added the new message on top. 3 threats now. 3 different forms, all pointing in the same direction. They were building a case against her, whether it was true or not, and Martha could feel the next step coming, like thunder before a storm. They were going to try to take her rights away on paper. The following day, Martha walked into the church office to drop off choir music and felt the atmosphere shift. Conversations dipped when she entered. Smiles looked strained. One woman touched Martha's arm and said, Honey, we're praying for you. The way people spoke when they believed someone was slipping. Martha realized the flowers and the children were not just gestures. They were props for a narrative. We tried. She refused. After lunch, Martha met Gloria Hensley again. Gloria listened, then slid a legal pad across the desk. We're going to prepare for the kind of filing people use when they want control, Gloria said. Guardianship, conservatorship, claims of incapacity. It doesn't mean they'll win. It means they'll try. Martha felt her stomach drop. They can do that? They can file, Gloria said. Anyone can file. The question is whether it's true, and whether there's evidence. Martha thought of the wellness visit summary in her purse. She thought of the camera footage. She thought of the bank envelope and the notes. She opened her folder and placed it on Gloria's desk again. I have evidence, Martha said. Gloria nodded. Keep building it. As Martha stood to leave, Gloria added one more line, quiet and serious. And Martha, if a friend of the family is helping them, that friend may be willing to say things that aren't true. Martha understood exactly who she meant. Pastor Reynolds. The papers arrived on a Thursday. A young man in a plain jacket knocked on Martha's door and asked for her by name. Martha opened the door with the chain on, the camera recording. The man introduced himself and held out an envelope. "You're been served," he said, not unkindly. Martha's hands did not shake. She took the envelope, closed the door, and carried it to the kitchen table as if it were another bill. She sat down, opened it, and read every line slowly. Jason and Kelsey had filed a petition claiming Martha was unable to manage her affairs. They asked the court to appoint Jason as the person in charge of her finances and decisions. They framed it as care. They called it protection. They scheduled an emergency hearing. The words on the page were both polished and ugly. It said Martha was confused. It said she was isolated. It said she had become paranoid and was being influenced by outside parties. It implied she was a danger to herself financially. Martha felt heat rise in her face, anger mixed with humiliation, but she did not let it turn into panic. She reached into her purse and pulled out the summary from her recent wellness visit. She placed it on the table beside the petition like a rebuttal. Then she called Gloria Hensley. Gloria listened in silence as Martha read parts of the petition aloud. When Martha finished, Gloria spoke in a voice that was calm, firm, and tired in the way professionals sound when they've seen the same cruelty before. "We respond," Gloria said. "Immediately. We bring proof, and we make sure the court sees the pattern." Martha stared at the petition again. "They're doing this because I won't transfer the house." "Yes," Gloria replied, "and the court needs to see that." That evening a police officer came to Martha's door for a welfare check. He was polite. He asked if she was safe. He asked if anyone was pressuring her. He looked around the living room, took quick notes, and spoke like a person trained to stay neutral. Martha answered clearly. She showed him her folder, printed texts, the church letter, the bank envelope, the camera clip timestamps, the notes. She did not cry. She did not rant. She gave facts. The officer nodded slowly. "Ma'am," he said, "you seem clear to me. I'll document the visit." When the officer left, Martha sat in silence for a long minute, then added another page to her folder. Welfare check, date, officer name, summary. Jason texted later that night. Jason, "Mom, this doesn't have to get ugly. Drop the lawyer, sign the transfer, and we'll stop." Martha stared at the message, jaw tight. They were using the court as a club, but offering mercy as if they were the injured party. Martha did not respond. Instead, she did something strategic. She called Deirdre, her friend from choir, and asked her to come over. Deirdre arrived with wide eyes and a coat still on, as if she had run out of the house. "They really filed something?" Deirdre asked. Martha handed her a copy of the petition. Deirdre read it and let out a sharp breath. This is nasty. It's a story," Martha said quietly. "They're writing a story." Deirdre looked up. "So we write the truth." They sat at the table together. Deirdre helped Martha organize the documentation into clear sections: bank, church, threats, intrusion, wellness visit, welfare check. Martha labeled each item and wrote a timeline, date by date, message by message, like a case file. The folder grew thicker. The next day, Kelsey called from a blocked number. Martha let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was a performance of sadness. "Martha," Kelsey's voice said, trembling on purpose, "we're just scared for you. Please stop fighting us. Think about the kids. Think about what this is doing to the family." An hour later, a second message arrived, not trembling at all. Kelsey texted, If you want to see Ava and Noah again, stop this. Martha's breath caught. That threat hit the one place she was soft. She printed it and added it to the folder. Then, without drama, she called Gloria. Gloria instructed Martha to communicate only through formal channels and to keep everything documented. Martha followed that advice with the same quiet obedience she used to follow choir notes. On Saturday, Pastor Reynolds finally met with Martha in person again. He called and said he needed to check on her. Martha agreed to speak with him on her porch, in view of the camera, with the chain lock in place. Deirdre sat inside, just out of sight, a witness if needed. Pastor Reynolds arrived with his usual calm expression, but his eyes looked tired. "Martha," he began gently, "this has gotten out of hand." Martha's voice stayed steady. "It got out of hand when my family tried to take my house." Pastor Reynolds sighed. "Jason is desperate," he said. "He's trying to keep his family afloat." "And I'm supposed to drown for that?" Martha asked. Pastor Reynolds frowned. "No one wants you harmed, but sometimes the most loving thing is to let your family help manage things." Martha looked at him. "You mean manage me?" Pastor Reynolds flinched. "Martha, I signed a letter because I've seen changes." The words landed like a slap. "You signed something for the court," Martha said, voice very quiet. Pastor Reynolds did not deny it. "I wrote that you've seemed stressed," he said, "that you've been isolated, that you might benefit from support." Martha's eyes narrowed. "Did you also write that I was incompetent?" Pastor Reynolds hesitated. "I wrote that you've been resistant." Resistant, another word used to excuse control. Martha's hand went to her folder. She pulled out the printed text message from Jason, the demand to transfer the house, and held it up. "This is why I'm resistant," she said, "because this is not love. This is a plan." Pastor Reynolds' face tightened. "Martha, you're making me the villain," he said. Martha's voice stayed calm. "You made yourself part of it." Pastor Reynolds looked down at the porch floor for a moment, then back at her, and his tone hardened for the first time. "If you don't accept their help," he said, "people will start asking hard questions about you." There it was. Not faith, not care. Social pressure delivered through the mouth of a pastor. Martha stared at him, and something inside her settled. The friend of the family was not neutral. He was a piece of the plan. On the morning of the hearing, Martha woke before sunrise and sat at the kitchen table with her hands wrapped around a mug she barely drank from. She was not afraid of the court itself. She was afraid of what the court represented in her community. The moment private family dysfunction became public record, and that was exactly why Jason and Kelsey had chosen it. A courtroom could make their story feel official. Gloria Hensley arrived at Martha's house at 7:30 a.m. and drove her downtown. Gloria wore a dark suit and carried a slim briefcase. Martha carried her documentation folder, now thick, labeled, and organized like a binder of truth. Outside the courthouse, the air was sharp. People moved in and out with folders, faces blank. It did not feel like a place where family belonged. It felt like a place where consequences lived. Jason and Kelsey were already there with an attorney Martha had never met. Kelsey wore a soft cardigan and a worried expression that looked carefully practiced. Jason held his shoulders like a man trying to look strong. Pastor Reynolds stood near them, hands clasped in front of him, eyes avoiding Martha's at first. When Martha saw him there, the betrayal tightened again. They went into the courtroom. The judge sat high above them, face unreadable. A clerk called the case. The words guardianship and incapacity echoed in the room like accusations. Jason's attorney spoke first. He used smooth language. He said Martha was a beloved elder. He said the family was concerned. He said she had become uncooperative and suspicious. He said she was being influenced by outsiders. Outsiders. Gloria Hensley stood and introduced herself, clearly and professionally, and said Martha Caldwell was present, capable, and disputing every claim. Then Gloria did something simple that shifted the air. She asked to submit exhibits. Gloria handed the clerk a packet, and the judge began reading. The first exhibit was Jason's text message. Transfer the house into my name this week. The judge's eyes moved across the words, then lifted to Jason. Jason's attorney tried to speak, but the judge raised a hand. Mr. Caldwell, the judge said, did you send this message? Jason's throat bobbed. Yes, he said, voice small. The judge looked back down. And the respondent replied, okay? Jason nodded. Gloria spoke. Your Honor, that reply was not consent. It was an attempt to avoid escalation while seeking legal guidance. Kelsey's attorney tried to frame the message as frustration. He was stressed, he said. He didn't mean it as coercion. Gloria did not argue emotionally. She added the next exhibit, the letter from the church, scheduling a meeting to discuss Martha's home and finances in a spirit of prayer. The judge read it, then looked at Pastor Reynolds. Pastor, the judge said, did you write this letter? Pastor Reynolds swallowed. Yes, Your Honor. I was trying to mediate. Gloria's voice stayed calm. Your Honor, the pastor was not a neutral mediator. He was part of the pressure campaign. Gloria submitted the bank envelope next. It included the branch note documenting the inquiry and identifying the person who requested access. The judge's eyes narrowed as she read the name. Kelsey Morgan Caldwell, the judge said aloud, and the room seemed to sharpen around it. Mrs. Caldwell, did you contact the bank regarding the respondent's accounts? Kelsey's face flushed. Her mouth opened, then closed. I was trying to help, she said finally. The judge looked at her for a long second. Help requires permission, she said. Gloria then submitted the camera footage timestamps and a still image from the clip. Someone on Martha's porch trying a key. The image was grainy, but the action was clear. The judge's tone changed. Is this the respondent's home? Yes, Gloria said. And the lock did not open? No, Your Honor, she had changed the locks. The judge leaned back slightly. Why would someone try a key if there was nothing to hide? Jason's attorney shifted. Your Honor, families share keys all the time. Gloria nodded once. And when the respondent refused to give them a key, someone tried anyway. Then, Gloria submitted Martha's wellness visit summary and the officer's welfare check report. The documents were ordinary, boring, and powerful. They contradicted the story of confusion and incapacity with plain statements. Oriented, coherent, independent. Martha watched the judge read, and she felt something loosen in her chest. It was not victory yet. It was the first time the truth had a formal voice. Pastor Reynolds was asked to speak. He tried to sound compassionate. I've known Martha for years, he said. She's a good woman. We were just concerned she wasn't accepting help. Gloria asked a question that cut through the fog. Pastor, Gloria said, did you witness Martha forgetting where she lived, forgetting names, getting lost, or failing to understand basic information? Pastor Reynolds hesitated. No. Did you witness her unable to pay bills or manage her accounts? No. Did you witness any medical diagnosis of incapacity? No. Gloria nodded. Then what exactly were you signing? Pastor Reynolds's face tightened. I signed based on the family's concern. Gloria's voice stayed even. So you signed a legal letter based on a story, not evidence. The judge's gaze fell on Pastor Reynolds like a weight. Pastor, she said, you should be careful about using your position to support allegations without factual basis. Pastor Reynolds looked down. Jason was asked to speak. He began with emotion, talking about love, fear, family. He talked about Harold's death, about Martha being alone, about wanting to protect her. Then Gloria asked one question that sounded almost gentle. Jason, she said, what is the current financial status of your business? Jason's eyes flicked toward his attorney. It's struggling, he admitted. Gloria's next question came like a quiet hammer. How much debt are you in? Jason hesitated again. The judge watched him. About 120,000, Jason said finally. Kelsey's face went pale. The courtroom went silent for a beat. Martha felt a strange blend of heartbreak and anger. He was not drowning quietly. He was dragging her toward the water. The judge spoke, voice firm. This petition is denied, she said. There is insufficient evidence of incapacity. There is evidence of coercion and attempted financial intrusion. Jason's attorney started to object. The judge raised her hand again. I am also ordering that any further attempts to access the respondent's accounts or property without her consent be addressed appropriately, the judge said. Do you understand, Mr. Caldwell? Jason's voice barely carried. Yes. Martha sat still, hands clasped, as if she could not trust her body to move. The judge looked at Martha then, and her tone softened slightly. Ms. Caldwell, she said, you have the right to make decisions that others don't like. That is not incapacity. That is autonomy. Martha nodded once. Thank you, she said, voice steady. When they stepped out into the hallway, Jason's face was rigid with humiliation. Kelsey's eyes were sharp and wet at the same time, anger disguised as tears. Pastor Reynolds avoided Martha completely. Gloria touched Martha's elbow. You did well, she said quietly. Now, be careful. The denial won't remove their need. It will just change their method. Martha nodded. She understood. As they walked toward the exit, Martha's phone buzzed with a notification from Regions Bank. Account alert. A new attempt to update access information was declined. Martha stopped in the hallway and stared at the screen. They had lost in court. And still, they were trying. The week after the hearing, Martha learned something painful about truth. Truth wins in a courtroom with documents and dates, but it spreads slower in a church where people prefer comfort. At first, the church group avoided the topic. People gave Martha careful smiles and said things like, I'm glad it worked out, without asking what had actually happened. Pastor Reynolds did not mention the hearing from the pulpit. He kept preaching about unity, forgiveness, and family peace, as if nothing had exploded. But small communities do not stay quiet forever. Deirdre, who had been Martha's witness and friend, refused to let the story remain vague. She did not gossip. She spoke plainly when someone asked. Jason tried to take Martha's house, Deirdre said. Kelsey tried to access her bank. They filed in court saying she wasn't competent. It was denied. Hearing it said out loud changed people's faces. The same women who had offered prayer for clarity now looked embarrassed. The men who had clapped Jason on the shoulder for stepping up became quieter around him. Jason and Kelsey stopped attending church for 2 Sundays in a row. When they did show up, they sat in the back, eyes forward, as if they were victims of misunderstanding. Martha kept singing in the choir, voice steady, face calm. She did not glare at them. She did not make a show. She let the truth do what it did best, exist. Behind the scenes, the consequences arrived like bills. Regions Bank placed extra safeguards on Martha's accounts. Gloria Hensley sent formal letters to the bank and to Jason and Kelsey's attorney, making it clear that any further attempts to access, change, or represent Martha's finances without her consent would be documented and addressed. Then another envelope arrived, this one from the county records office. At first glance it looked like routine mail, but as Martha read the letter, her stomach tightened. It was a notice about a property document that had been submitted for recording, something involving her address. Martha's breath caught. Gloria had warned her. Denial wouldn't remove their need, it would change their method. Martha called Gloria immediately. Gloria asked her to bring the envelope to the office. In Gloria's conference room, Martha watched as Gloria read the notice and then requested the document copy through the proper channels. When the copy arrived, Gloria's expression hardened. Someone had attempted to file a document that would shift interest in the property, language that looked official, signatures that looked almost right. Almost. Martha leaned in and saw the signature line. It was her name, and it was not her signature. Martha felt her face go cold. There was a difference between pressure and fraud. This was not family conflict. This was theft. Gloria stayed calm. We respond, she said. We submit your notarized declaration. We request an immediate hold, and we document this attempt. Gloria pulled out the notarized letter they had prepared earlier, Martha's clear statement of intent regarding her property and her refusal to transfer ownership. It was clean, signed properly, and witnessed. It was the kind of paper that stood firm when other paper tried to lie. Within days, the county office confirmed the submitted document would not be recorded as valid. The signature was questioned. The submission was flagged. The attempt created a trail. It also created a new problem for Jason and Kelsey. They had moved from manipulation to a measurable act. When Gloria notified their attorney that the attempted filing was being documented and referred through appropriate channels, Jason's attorney called back with a different tone. He asked if Martha would consider resolving things privately. Privately. Martha knew what that meant. Keep it quiet, protect them from consequences, and in exchange, maybe they would stop. Martha's hands rested on the table. "No," she said. Gloria nodded. "My client is not interested in quiet deals," she replied. "My client is interested in safety." Jason showed up at Martha's house 2 nights later, alone this time. No pastor, no children, no bouquet. The porch camera captured him standing at the door with his shoulders slumped, eyes red. When Martha checked the live feed, she saw something she did not expect: fear. She opened the door with the chain still on. Jason swallowed hard. "Mom," he said, voice rough, "I need to talk." Martha did not soften the boundary. "Talk." Jason's eyes dropped. "The bank froze some things," he said. "My accounts. And the lawyer says I could be in trouble." Martha's chest tightened. Not with pity for his stress. She had pity for the boy he used to be, the son she had loved without question. "You tried to file something," Martha said. She did not ask, she stated. Jason's face crumpled for a second. "Kelsey did it," he said quickly. She said it was the only way. She said you'd never know." Martha stared at him. "And you let her." Jason's lips trembled. "I didn't stop her," he admitted. The truth tasted bitter. He wasn't just desperate. He was willing. Martha's voice stayed low. "You brought the pastor to my door. You threatened to take my rights. You used your kids to pressure me. And you still tried to take my house." Jason looked up, eyes wet now. "I was drowning," he whispered. Martha's gaze did not move. "So you tried to pull me under." Jason flinched like she had hit him, but she had only named what was true. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The street was quiet. Somewhere a dog barked in the distance. Martha heard her own breathing, steady and controlled. Jason wiped his face with the back of his hand. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. Martha felt the old reflex again. To fix it. To save him. She felt the pull of peace. And she remembered the word in the church bulletin: wise decisions. So she made one. "I want you to stop," she said. "No more contact without my attorney. No more coming to my house. No more using the church. And if you want a relationship someday, it starts with honesty and accountability, not pressure." Jason's shoulders sagged. "Kelsey will never agree," he muttered. "That's your choice," Martha said. "You chose her methods. Now you choose your consequences." Jason stared at the ground, and for the first time he looked less like a son and more like a man who had broken something he could not glue back together. As he walked away, Martha closed the door gently and leaned her forehead against the wood. She did not feel happy. She felt clean, because for the first time since Harold's death, she had protected her life without begging anyone for permission. And outside, in the quiet Nashville night, the plan that had been hidden behind prayer and concern was collapsing under something it could not outmaneuver: proof. Months later, Martha's house still looked the same from the street. The porch light still warmed the brick at dusk. The wind chime still sang when the breeze moved through. The rosebush still leaned toward the sun, stubborn and alive. But inside, the air felt different. Martha no longer lived like someone waiting to be corrected. She kept her documentation folder in a labeled file box now, not because she wanted to relive the ordeal, but because she had learned something hard. Clarity is protection. Paper is protection. Boundaries are protection. Her estate plan was updated and locked down in ways that could not be interpreted by someone with a hungry agenda. Gloria Hensley helped her set it up, so Martha's wishes were clear, her assets were managed exactly as she chose, and any future disputes would run into strong walls instead of soft confusion. Martha did not cut off her grandchildren in anger. She refused to let them be used as leverage. Through formal channels, Martha arranged for supervised visits in neutral places when appropriate: short afternoons at a park, an ice cream shop, a public library kids area. She kept it simple and safe. The children were allowed to love their grandmother without carrying adult lies. Jason did not come at first. Kelsey did not come at all. In the church, the story finally caught up to the truth. The elders confronted Pastor Reynolds about his letter and his involvement. He did not lose his job overnight. Churches move slowly like old ships, but he was asked to stop mediating family finances. He was asked to apologize privately for overstepping. He never offered the kind of apology that fully admitted wrongdoing, but his influence on Martha's life ended. That mattered. Martha returned to her routines, but she added new ones that were built from purpose, not fear. She joined a community garden program and started volunteering twice a week. She brought gloves, a sun hat, and the same quiet focus she used in her own backyard. She taught younger volunteers how to prune without damaging new growth. She laughed more than she expected to. On Sundays, she stayed in the choir. Her voice did not become louder, it became steadier. When she sang, she did not sound like a woman trying to prove she was okay. She sounded like a woman who already knew. One evening, after rehearsal, Deirdre found Martha in the fellowship hall folding programs. "You doing all right?" Deirdre asked. Martha nodded. "I'm doing better than all right," she said. "I'm honest." Deirdre smiled. "That's dangerous for people who like control." Martha almost laughed. "Let them be scared," she said. Jason reached out once, months after the failed petition, with a short message that lacked the old threats. "Jason, Mom, I'm sorry for what I did. I didn't handle my life right." Martha read it and felt the old ache, but she did not collapse into it. She responded with a truth that did not bend. "Martha, I love you, but love doesn't mean access. If you want a relationship, it has to be respectful and consistent." Jason did not answer right away. When he did, it was not a demand. It was a question. "Jason, can we talk with your attorney there?" That question was small, but it was the first sign of accountability Martha had seen in a long time. Maybe it would grow into something real. Maybe it wouldn't. Martha stopped trying to predict it. She stopped trying to control outcomes she did not own. She focused on what she could control: her decisions, her dignity, her life. On the anniversary of Harold's death, Martha sat on her porch with a cup of coffee and the manila folder in her lap. She opened it and looked at the first paper again, the 6:12 a.m. text demanding her home. She didn't feel rage the way she used to. She felt clarity. The message was not just a threat. It was a mirror that showed her the truth. Some people will use anything, family ties, church language, community pressure, to get what they want. And if she kept choosing peace at any cost, she would end up paying with her own freedom. Martha closed the folder and set it beside her chair. She looked at the quiet street and asked herself the question that every older person deserves to ask without shame. How much of a life does someone have to give away before people call it love? And for anyone watching this, what would you do if the people who claim to care about you used your faith, your reputation, and your loneliness as a weapon? If this story hit you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs the reminder. Because faith is not a license to manipulate, and boundaries are not cruelty. They are survival. In early spring, Martha drove to Regions Bank again, not because she was scared, but because she wanted her life to feel normal on purpose. The same banker greeted her with a respectful nod. Martha reviewed statements, confirmed her security settings, and walked out with a small envelope in her purse like it was nothing more than routine. Outside, she stopped at the local cafe across from church, the same place where Jason and Kelsey used to corner her with soft voices and public smiles. This time, Martha chose her own table by the window. She ordered a simple black coffee and a warm pastry, paid with her own card, and watched people come and go. For a few minutes she let herself grieve the version of family she thought she had. She let herself miss the son who used to run into the house after school and throw his backpack on the floor without fear. She let herself miss the idea that love was safe. Then she watched a young mother guide her toddler through the door, patient and firm. And Martha remembered something important. Love can be gentle and still have rules. That summer, Martha and Gloria organized a small informational session at the church. Not a lecture, not a confrontation, just a quiet invitation. The topic on the flyer was simple: planning with dignity, protecting your wishes as you age. Martha did not stand at the microphone to accuse her son. She did not mention Jason or Kelsey's names. She did not turn her pain into a spectacle. She simply sat in the front row, visible, steady, no longer hiding. A community legal aid representative explained general concepts: how older adults can document their wishes, how to choose trusted people carefully, how to recognize pressure, and when to seek professional help. People asked questions they had been too embarrassed to ask before. Some admitted they had signed papers they didn't understand because they didn't want to look difficult. Martha watched their faces and recognized the same vulnerability she once had: the desire to avoid public conflict. After the session, an older man approached Martha with a shaky smile. "Thank you for doing that," he said. "My nephew keeps pushing me about my truck and my accounts. I thought I was being selfish." Martha shook her head slowly. "You're being alive," she said. Word traveled through Nashville in its usual way, slowly, then all at once. People who had once repeated Kelsey's concern stopped using the word lonely like it was a diagnosis. They started using a different word: respect. Jason's business did not magically recover. Debt does not disappear because someone lost a court case. But the pressure on Martha did not return. The legal walls held, the bank walls held, the paper walls held, and Martha's quietest victory was not that she won. That is, it was that she could sit on her porch at night, hear the wind chime, and feel safe in her own home again. So if you're watching this and you've been pressured by people who hide greed behind religion or shame behind concern, remember Martha's two-word reply. Sometimes the strongest thing an older person can say is not a speech, it's a boundary. And if you want to support stories like this, hit like, subscribe, and comment the city you're watching from. The more people share where they're listening, the more these stories reach the ones who need them before it's too late.